You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caporelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators. Great to have you back on another episode where we have another great question as always. And as I've started out these last couple of episodes, I just want to remind you that the company that sponsors the show, the company that I also own and founded, Strategy Generation Company, is available to help you with all of your strategy needs. So we have workshops and training and resources. We can help you develop your strategy. Just go visit us at strategygeneration.com and check out what we have to offer. Also, we'd love it if you could check out some of our social media pages, whether it's Twitter, we're Strat Generation on Twitter, and then Strategy Generation everywhere else, which would be Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So go check out our company pages there. Give us a like if you don't mind, and follow what we have to say, because I think we have a lot of great resources that you might be interested in. So with all of that out of the way and said, let's get to today's question, which is a really thorough one. So let's see what it has to say. It's Dear Strategy. To what degree should an organization involve the entire workforce/employees in the development and execution of its strategy? And then it kind of goes on to clarify, saying too little is bad, too much is bad, and what is just right? Somewhere in the middle. What does that look like? So I think it's that qualification part that really attracted me towards this question. And I want to say that I'm not sure that I agree with the way it's been qualified. So the implication is that, if you involve too much of the organization, it's bad. If you involve too little of the organization, it's bad. And so somewhere in the middle is the right answer. What is the right answer, and what does that look like? And I would say, in theory, I probably do agree with that to some extent, but I don't want to pigeonhole the answer into that, because a lot of that depends on the size and scope of the business, right? If you're a small business, let's say 4 or 5 people, I'm a big proponent of everyone being involved in the strategic development process. You're a small company, right? And people need to feel ownership. People need to feel like they're having an impact outside of just doing their day-to-day job. They want to know generally that they're adding value to the world, right? People don't just work for the paycheck. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were having this discussion about, how do you like your job and this and that and the other thing. And, all specifics aside, let's just say that the person is getting a really nice paycheck, but does not feel like they are an integral part of what's going on. They don't feel like they're impacting the strategy at all. They're being told what to do. It's somebody else's vision, and they have nothing to do with it. Anytime this person offers ideas or suggestions, it's basically said, yeah, okay, great, but no, right? And the result is this is a highly compensated and high-level person in that organization who's literally being wasted, right? Because they are not feeling a part of where the organization is going. So I don't think that's a good thing, right? And if you're in a small company, I do think the right answer is to bring everyone into your strategy, make them all a part of it. And even if you want to own the final say, right? You're going to get some ideas, you're going to get some contributions, and those are all going to be really, really important, not only to bringing you to a place that you might not have thought of, but also in motivating your employees to help bring you there as well. So that is the smaller business mentality. And I think that kind of covers where I'd want to say there. But now, the larger business, most people work for large companies, right? So if you're in that kind of a company at 10,000 plus employees, you might say, well, that's going to be impossible to bring every person into the strategy at all times. And I would agree with you, except there is certainly an opportunity for companies to do a better job at that than they're doing today. So let me explain what I mean. Most companies that I would work with, I suggest that, I'm talking large companies here, I suggest that they build their strategy in layers, right? So you have at the highest layer of the company a corporate strategy. Then most of those companies have business units. So you'd have business unit strategies that tie to the corporate strategies. And you'd have portfolio strategies that tie to the business unit strategies. And you might even have product strategies that tie to the portfolio strategies, right? And then every function needs to have some level of a strategy to tie to those strategies so that everything kind of works together, right? And don't fool yourself into believing that every one of these layers has to be a formal written plan. I think this is where we sometimes run into trouble inside of large businesses, is that we see strategies as burdensome exercise that has to involve a lot of data gathering and, a 50-page presentation and, a huge plan like writing a thesis. And that is just not the case at every level. Maybe at the corporate strategy, you have to have that business unit, maybe even at the portfolio, but these supporting strategies, they could be as simple as where do you want to go and how are you going to get there, right? So that's it. I mean, that's a strategic plan in a nutshell. What do you want to actually accomplish and how are you going to accomplish it? And that could be written down, or it can just be something that you live and communicate every day. So the way that I would say inside of a larger company is that companies have to encourage strategy to be a bigger part of people's DNA. Instead of encouraging the firefighting like we talked about on last week's episode, you need to encourage people to be thinking for the future, thinking ahead, planning for where they want to go, and making sure that those plans tie into the bigger plans of the company, which means that they have to know what those bigger plans of the company is. And when you have this strategic process that's encouraged down through your organization from the top down, you'll find that people are more involved in their little corner of whatever strategy you have. That means that in some way, everyone can be involved in the strategy. Now, what that's going to require from leadership is that strategy from the top down is communicated and that feedback from the bottom up is encouraged. And you might do that on a quarterly basis. You might do that on a monthly basis. You have to communicate with people. And in large corporate companies, that could be difficult, but that is what's required. But part of that communication needs to be, how are you in your jobs going to contribute to the strategy of the business? Get that feedback, encourage that behavior, and in that way, you will be involving everyone in the company in your strategy in some shape, form, or fashion. And I am a big fan of companies doing that. So that's where I would try and go. Now, the other thing that I would say about this is if you are in that part of the business that's doing a formal strategy, I don't want to bypass the question completely, because I'm sure this person is asking, look, we have to put together a formal plan for our business or whatever else. How many people should I involve? And I don't want to skirt that part of it, because there is an answer to that. And the answer is involve your direct staff, right? At a minimum. Because you want to make sure that all functions are involved. Just like the small business that we talked about before, if you're singularly responsible for your strategy and you're not getting any inputs and you're not asking them to be involved, you're going to get that same effect that we talked about before. People are going to feel like they're not a part of it, they're not adding value, and they're just going to collect a paycheck, which at worst means that you're not going to get what you're paying for out of your employees. And certainly they're not going to be motivated to do anything above and beyond, which none of that is good. So definitely think about it like I talked about with the small business mentality. Involve your entire direct staff, involve every function, and require that they get feedback from their staffs as well and their employees, and that they communicate the strategy back down to their employees also. Because if you foster this environment of creativity where everyone's idea is valuable, it doesn't mean everyone's idea is going to be executed upon, but everyone's idea is valuable, everyone's feedback is valuable, and everyone plays a role in the execution of a strategy that they can believe in. If you foster that kind of thinking inside of your company, believe me, you're going to be far ahead of your competitors. And that is exactly where I want you to be. So that's where I would go with it. So again, to the question, to what degree should an organization involve the entire workforce and employees in the strategy? I think to some degree, all employees should be involved. The formal planning, maybe just the direct staffs of the people that are responsible for the strategies, but try and influence this strategic thinking throughout your entire organization. And I think you'll find a lot more success if you do that. So while you're doing that, if you have any other questions for the show, please go out to dearstrategy.net, click on the Ask a Question link and you can ask a question to be featured on the show. Also, if you're listening to this on any of your podcast aggregators of choice, whether it's iTunes or Google Play or any of the other places, leave us a review. Tell your friends about it. Let's get this subject out there so people can take advantage of this free resource as much as you are doing. And we hope you really enjoy what we have to say on the show and when you find it helpful. So help other people to find it as well. And of course, go visit our company at strategygeneration.com if you're interested in workshops, training, or taking advantage of any of the resources that we have. And if any of this resonated with you today and you want to try and get that strategy thinking or strategic thinking into the DNA of your company, we can help you do that. So give us a shout and we'll help you find your way at strategygeneration.com. So while you're doing all that, don't forget to make time for the plan, and we'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.